president has been on a pardon spree, and many think he's about to pardon Roger Stone, his longtime friend and one-time campaign advisor, who's being sentenced, I think, any minute now. They're in a break for crimes of obstructing justice, witness tampering, lying to Congress. Do you think Trump should pardon Roger Stone?
I do, and I think that it requires a review of the pardon power.
Come on.
Barack Obama pardoned over 1,700 people. Bill Clinton pardoned 459 people. Bill Clinton pardoned 16 people who were a member of a Puerto Rican terrorist organization that planned murders at the Bronx Tavern here in the United States of America.
Perhaps that wasn't the right thing to do.
When we designed our Constitution, there were vestiges of the British monarchy that Americans still had some reverence for, and one was the notion that the executive, that the sovereign, could extend unlimited grace for any reason or no reason at all. That was an element of the British system that I was saying was borrowed.
No, I understand.
What I was getting at is, can we agree that perhaps that pardon power needs to be reviewed and curbed?
So, great question. In Federalist 74, Alexander Hamilton writes that the reason we have the pardon power is to serve as a check on a criminal justice system, which, if allowed to run wild, could create a great sense of sanguinity in our country. And so I think that if you look at the original intent of the pardon power, it cannot be limited. And again, Trump has pardoned 26 people. Obama pardoned over 1,700. Bill Clinton pardoned 459.
So the answer to the question is what?
I would agree that Roger Stone should be pardoned if for no other reason that there's been a double standard in this country where people like Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Andrew McCabe, Clapper, Brennan have not faced consequences.
Do you realize how ridiculous you have to be to make Meghan McCain sound reasonable? And yet that's exactly what happened, as Matt Gaetz said outright that he believes that Trump should pardon Roger Stone. And he gives a laundry list of bizarre justifications, but let's just consider first and foremost why Roger Stone is here. He was convicted of 1 count of obstruction of justice, 5 counts of making false statements to the FBI and congressional investigators, and 1 count of witness tampering. Any way you cut that, he broke the law. And not just once, but on 7 separate counts. So just on its face alone, for Matt Gaetz to say that Stone should be pardoned is the exact same thing as saying that the law doesn't apply to him. Which is why even Meghan McCain laughs incredulously at this claim. Because frankly, regardless of what justification Gaetz is going to cook up, and let's be honest here, you know that he's going to try his best, it doesn't change the fact that Stone broke the law. Short of saying that he'd been possessed by a demon who took control of his body, Roger Stone did what he did. And at a bare minimum, there has to be consequences for illegal behavior. In other words, this is pretty black and white in the sense that any attempt to justify a pardon is saying that Stone should be able to get away with crimes. And I know you're not going to believe this, but that's exactly what Gaetz did. He did it by saying that Clinton pardoned 16 people that were part of a terrorist organization, a reference to his decision to grant clemency to members of a militant Puerto Rican nationalist group back in 1999. But the point here is that Gaetz was obviously opposed to that move, and yet he's drawing an equivalency and using it as justification for Trump to pardon Stone. The guy is saying, that was a terrible move by Clinton that I vehemently opposed, and so Trump should do something that I'm suggesting is just as bad. Is that honestly his rationale here? That someone else did something awful when Matt Gaetz was 17 years old, but because Clinton was a Democrat, that's just a blank check for a Republican today, 20 years later, to do something awful back? Can't ask for more airtight logic than that. But that pales in comparison to Gaetz's next justification here, which is him suggesting that Americans still have reverence for vestiges of the British monarchy, of a king. I mean, this party is so beyond desperate to coddle Trump's most obvious desires that they might as well just put a crown on the guy. Now, for those of us not vying for a retweet on Trump's Twitter feed, no, we are not nostalgic for the days of the monarchy. To be honest, what we are actually nostalgic for are the days of a democracy. Gaetz then goes on to suggest that Trump's pardon power would serve as a check on a criminal justice system that has run wild. Gaetz is actually using the checks and balances argument here to defend a guy whose executive orders have all but rendered Congress useless. Trump has stolen money allocated by Congress to build his wall, he's launched strikes that have brought us to the brink of war without congressional approval, and he's anointed Rudy Giuliani to unilaterally act as a shadow State Department and facilitate the investigations into Joe Biden specifically so as not to use the actual State Department and have to follow the protocols that come with it. Trump doesn't want checks and balances, he wants unilateral control. So for the congressman to suggest suggest otherwise is gaslighting so obvious that even Orwell would tell Matt Gaetz to chill. The truth is that the Justice Department doesn't need the president to act as a check because there are already checks within the department. There's oversight, there are protocols and guidelines and, laws. And in fact, on the Roger Stone case, there were 4 separate prosecutors, all of whom worked together under the confines of those laws to bring charges against a man who displayed nothing but disdain for the rules. And yet Trump's decision to, quote, act as a check on a criminal justice system run wild caused all 4 of those prosecutors to quit, with one assistant U.S. attorney even leaving the government altogether. This wasn't Trump fixing some corrupt process within the Justice Department. This was Trump performing a corrupt process in spite of the Justice Department. So Matt Gaetz can try and justify Roger Stone's outright criminal behavior by pretending that he's simply nostalgic for the days of a monarchy, or that Donald Trump is some noble crusader against an out-of-control Justice Department. But in reality, all he's accomplished is proving on national television that there's no limits he won't go to serve as Trump's little lapdog.